A city in Michigan has passed a new right to renew law that makes it so that landlords have to renew a tenant's lease. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. So I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Michigan. Now, the town that this new law that's being passed in is a college town, right? And that actually has something to do with why this law was passed. Now, the details of it, they cover it a lot better in the article than what I'll be able to explain. But to make it pretty simple, from what I understand, the college students were having a lot of issues because they were showing their units off to other tenants before they even had a chance to decide if they wanted to stay in that unit or not, right? So what they did was they passed this law that says that, hey, if a person wants to stay in their unit, then they should have the right to renew. Now, to me, this sounds like the landlord is actually getting the short end of the stick, because they're saying, hey, that the landlord no longer can decide who's going to be staying in their units, but the tenant can decide to stay as long as they want to, if desired. Now, I don't like this, okay? I don't. There's a lot of reasons why landlords don't want to renew, and one of the big ones that I like to bring up is the fact that we're able to charge tenants more rent. Okay, now I know what everybody's saying. Oh, that isn't fair. You shouldn't be, charging your new tenants more rent. Well, listen, look at inflation. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Okay, and I'm not sure that this sort of law is going to be beneficial for landlords or tenants, even for that reason. Okay, so I'll get more into this in just a moment, but before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of, a rule or regulation or legislation that says that tenants have a right to renew their lease and landlords have no say in it? Okay, you know what that sounds like to me? You remember I covered in several other videos the just cause eviction thing that says that landlords can only remove a tenant if they have a just cause. And otherwise, the tenant is allowed to stay perpetually, perhaps forever, okay? And, that is exactly what this seems to be doing, okay? I don't like this sort of legislation. It's going to have unintended consequences, and it's going to end up biting not only the landlords, but the tenants, because they're going to find it's a lot harder to find new housing because people aren't leaving. People aren't moving around. The normal churn in the rental cycle isn't occurring as people stay longer and longer in the same units. In a normal rental property, people don't stay for 10, 20 plus years, but in one where they could never be evicted, they'll stay for a long time, especially if they've got cheap rent. And then they'll probably throw some kind of rent increase provisions in there. This is what they do, okay? This is why I am so opposed to this sort of thing. All right, so let's get into this article. This is coming from mlive.com, and it says, Ann Arbor renters applaud new law, but landlords aren't celebrating. Let's get into it. The passage of Ann Arbor's new right to renew law drew applause from renters in the city council chambers this week. But one group isn't applauding the move. The Washtenaw Area Apartment Association, a landlord group arguing city officials are bending to the wishes of a small, vocal cohort of University of Michigan graduate students who lobbied for the law. The landlord group unsuccessfully sued the city last year over another new law that limits when landlords can show occupied apartments and sign leases, giving tenants 7 months to live in apartments before having to decide on renewing. The latest ordinance changes this week now give tenants the right to renew leases unless landlords have a legal reason to evict them. A first in the state protection for renters who make up a majority of the city's population. Landlords who don't follow the law can face penalty fines and be forced to pay for relocation assistance. Now, pay attention to what I just said right there. They said that the majority of the people in the city are renters, okay? And this is why this law passed, because the city council is bowing down to the renters because they want votes. It has nothing to do with what is right, what is good, what is the best thing for the city. They want votes. They want to get reelected. They know they're not going to get reelected if the majority of people in the city, if you basically pass any law that doesn't benefit renters, okay? So in the next thing, they say landlords can face fines and possibly be forced to pay relocation assistance. So I didn't renew somebody's lease, so now I got to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket so they can rent somewhere else? That is idiotic, okay? This is the reason why people don't want to be landlords. This is the reason why you're ending up with housing stock that is shorter on new housing, because people don't want to deal with this nonsense. Now, I admit, right, it sucks if you're in a place for a few months and they're already trying to show it to somebody else and you haven't even had time to make up the decision whether you want to stay or not, right? But that's the way this kind of game plays in these sort of college towns where, college students are constantly moving from place to place. New students are moving in. Some of them are graduating and moving on to wherever they're going, etc., right? And this is the only way the landlords can make sure that their units are filled from year to year. Okay, this is part of the business. And it doesn't make sense that they want to make it harder for landlords to operate their business, or harder for new tenants, new students who are moving into the town to find units once they get there. Because now they'll no longer be able to look at an apartment 6 months, before they go head off to college and, find a place to live. Now they're looking in a much shorter window, and it's going to be a lot harder. Chris Heaton, president of the Washtenaw Area Apartment Association and owner of property management company Campus Management Inc., explained why his group thinks that that's a bad idea for both landlords and renters. Our members love renewals, renew to almost everyone, and share the benefits of renewals with our residents, he said, arguing the new law is just another mechanism to further ratchet down on last year's ordinance restricting the start of the leasing season to the spring, not long before most students leave for the summer. Our disappointment is mostly for the thousands of students who have recently expressed to local housing providers that they would like to shop and rent right now, Heaton said, arguing students now have to wait until about 4 weeks before their final exams in the spring to begin apartment shopping and lease signing for the following school year. Additionally, this does nothing to help affordability, another espoused goal of this small group and the city council, and, in fact, makes it worse. Like I've said, many new regulations, this is going to make it more affordable. This is going to be such a great thing, and it might make the housing more affordable for the people who already live there, but for the people who are moving to town, it makes things harder and more expensive for them. It makes the landlord have to spend more money and spend more time, have more vacancy loss, and in order to cover for that vacancy loss, they might have to charge higher rents. It's like every time I make a video and I have to explain to people that the more regulations you have, the more laws and rules, and the harder you make it for landlords to operate a business, we pass those costs on to the renters. Okay, that is what we do. We do not swallow those costs. That we pass the cost on, and that is in the form of higher rents. And that makes things a lot less affordable for them. And then they complain, oh, housing is too expensive. Well, it's your own fault. You passed that stupid law. Your fault. Stop looking at me and blaming me. Renters who spoke out before City Council this week advocating for the right to renew law urged city officials to listen to them and not let landlords speak for them. Ann Arbor renter Evelyn Smith, a member of the Graduate Employees Organization at described the local rental market as deeply dysfunctional. In fact, I was asked by my landlord just today to renew a lease that started fewer than 40 days ago, she said. The right to renew ordinance is not an extreme piece of legislation. We're just trying to get our rental market to function a little bit more like most of the rental markets in the country. Your rental market is different, okay? Why is it different? Because it's a college town, okay? You cannot compare the rental market in a college town to that of a city like, that doesn't have a major university in it, okay? And even places that aren't known as college towns. Like, for example, here in Omaha, we have a couple of large universities. The University of Nebraska in Omaha, right? And I rented one of my houses to college students. But you know what I did? I went ahead and put them on a regular lease, just like I was renting to people who weren't college students, because my criteria doesn't change, and I think that the big issue here is that because so much of the local area in Ann Arbor is dependent upon the college students, and the economic impact that they make, that landlords have to act differently. So because the economic impact of the colleges here in Omaha isn't that great, I can perform and tell the college students, well, you have to comply with what all the regular normal tenants are doing, and because it makes sense here. Okay, so I'm not trying to judge landlords who are doing student rentals or whatever. I hear it's a great business, you make a ton of money, etc. But they need to realize that the whole market operates differently because of this giant university in the middle of town. It's part of the reason why I don't really want to deal with specifically student rentals. It's not that you can't make good money, but it's just not what I personally want. I want less stress, less headaches. Okay, and I tend to think that these would be a little bit more stress and more headaches than what I'm looking for.